Would you like to learn how to make this delicious homemade spaghetti sauce that's chock full of vegetables, so it's really good and healthy for your family? Just stay tuned for the next episode of Hilltop Stovetop. Hello and welcome back to Hilltop Stovetop, the show where we're teaching you how to make great meals in an ordinary kitchen. For those of you that have been watching this show for a while, you realize that once again we're in a new kitchen. And this is the third kitchen that I've been cooking out of since I started this series. And I don't normally move that many times in one year, but this seems to be the year for getting it all done at once. Right now, I'm in my new apartment here at South Point in Winnipeg, and I have this gorgeous kitchen, which is actually only about 1 foot wider than my kitchen in Eganville was. But because of the layout of it and the fact that it's an open concept, it's a little different view for filming. And even though I've got really nice new appliances, I also have this nifty gizmo which will allow me to cook on the peninsula, so it'll be a little bit easier for everybody to see what we're doing. So since I've recently moved, of course my pantry is kind of empty right now. So my goal today is to start doing things that's going to refill my freezer. And when you're talking about doing your weekly meal planning, the secret isn't making a whole bunch of meals ahead of time. The secret is having some basic sauces and some basic sort of things in the freezer that you can make other things out of. So today we're starting with my version of a spaghetti sauce. It might not be an Italian mama's kind of sauce, but it works for me. And it's the kind of thing that I can put it into individual servings or 2 or 3 servings in the freezer. I am going to use meat today, but you don't have to use meat. And on that note, today's episode is dedicated to Matt from Bell MTS, who came and hooked up my internet and was talking about the fact that as a young person, he goes out and he orders on Skip the Dishes quite a bit. But if you know how to make this kind of thing, you can save yourself quite a bit of money. And also to the nice young man I met in the spice aisle at Superstore, and we were talking about spaghetti sauce, and he's a vegetarian, so all you'd have to do in this circumstance is just make the same meal, but without adding the meat. So by making this spaghetti sauce, I start off with some basics. I can make spaghetti with it, of course, but I can also do something like I could add beans to it and some extra chili powder and get chili out of it. Or I could puree it a little bit more and use it for the tomato layer in a lasagna. So lots of different options once you've got this basic sauce down. The other cool thing about this is it's a great way to hide vegetables. So if you've got kids that, or even adults in your household that don't want to eat a lot of veggies, this is a great way to sneak in a few extras on them. So we're going to start by getting this thing hooked up. There we go. Okay, so the first step we're going to do is to get our pot warmed up. I had to switch pots out here because this particular type of heater only works on a magnetic system, and my other pot didn't want to work in there. So I'm going to have a nice little splash of olive oil into there and get that warming up. And we're going to start with our onions. I've got a large onion that I've chopped up here, and I see I didn't chop this well enough. Just give that a little, missed a spot in there. So we'll start by getting that cooked up. And what would Italian or what would a spaghetti sauce be without a good bunch of garlic? And this is where Coco wants to come and find out just what is happening. And I also have about half of a head of celery that I've chopped up. And I've chopped it quite fine. And we're going to saute those until they start to soften a little bit. And then we'll be on to the next part. So give us about 5 minutes for this to get softened up. Okay, so our celery and onions and garlic have softened up a bit. The onions are getting translucent. So we're just going to set that off to the side for just a moment. And the next step would be adding in the meat. Now I've got two things here. Let's see here. There we go. So I've got some mild Italian sausage, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pinch that out into little bits. If you were able to get the meat without already being in the sausage casing, that would be even better. And you could slice this up into small chunks. But I don't need the sausage casing part. There we go. And I also have here about just under a pound of hamburger. And we'll get this all browned up. And I'm adding a little bit of water to it. I probably should have added a little bit of oil to start with. But both these sausages and the hamburger that I have chosen are exceptionally lean, much leaner than I'd expected. I thought that there was going to be some fat come out of the meat, but so far it hasn't, so that's a good thing. So by adding that little bit of water, what it's done is it's taken the meat or the brown part off of the bottom. It's deglazed the pan a little bit. And we'll just cook this up until the meat is browned. And if you don't brown the meat before you add all the rest of the sauces in, or the tomatoes and so on in, it's always going to have that little bit of a gray texture in it. Okay, so now that this is cooked down a little bit, we can see that there was some fat in there. It just took it a little while to come out. So I will spoon some of that off. All kinds of beeps that come off of this machine. It doesn't like being left uncovered. Okay, so that's browned up. Now we can add back in the celery and the onions. And this is where it really sneaks in some vegetables, because what I've got here is I've got about 3 carrots, finely grated, and I'm going to add that in. And I'm also going to add in some salt. So this is the pepper, right? Salt is the white stuff. And we're going to add in some salt. And anytime I'm cooking with tomatoes, I really like to add basil. And those of you who watched my first videos where we made pasta primavera and we had fresh basil, that was awesome. But this is the late winter, early spring. So all I have is the dried basil. And I'm going to add in a little bit of sugar, maybe, I'm going to say 2 tablespoons for a pot this big. Now comes the time to get in these tomatoes. So I always start with a jar of pre-made spaghetti sauce. I like to choose one that has a very strong flavor. This is roasted garlic and onion. And we're gonna put that in. It doesn't matter what brand, whatever kind you want. And I'm gonna add a little bit of water. Just rinse out that jar. Next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add in canned tomatoes. Now, those of you who are watching my episode on butter chicken know we were talking about the different kinds of canned tomatoes, whether it be crushed tomatoes, diced tomatoes, whole tomatoes. In this case, I'm using diced tomatoes, so there's a little bit of substance to it, but it doesn't have all the seeds that can add a bitterness to it. And I've chosen the kind that comes pre-spiced with some Italian spices. So that saves me having to add in a bunch of extras in there. And the last thing that I'm going to add in is some tomato paste. And tomato paste is where you have the tomatoes and just simmered down so it's really intense flavor. And we're going to add in about half of the can. For whatever reason, a lot of recipes seem to call for just half a can. And then you're stuck with this other half of a can with leftovers. So I'm just going to move over here and show you a little trick. Now we're going to take a little bit of plastic film. Spread that out on the counter. And take the remainder of this tomato paste. Didn't do that very well. But we're just going to flatten it out just a little bit and fold all of the plastic wrap over the top of it. And I'm just going to pop it in the freezer, just like that. And then the next time I need tomato paste, I can just take this out, peel off the plastic wrap, and pop the whole thing in. And because it's kind of flat, it will melt quite quickly into whatever sauce I'm making. So now we've got all of these goodies all together. one can deny that you're getting your fair share of vegetables when you're eating this. Now, the next stage with this is to just let it simmer. And as soon as your carrots are cooked through, that's probably good enough. So if this was just a fast evening dinner, you'd be good to go. But it's also the kind of sauce that you can let it simmer for quite a while. And this is the kind of thing that I'll make. I'll use it as an example. I had some friends that were moving, and they were coming over for supper after they'd moved because we weren't sure what time they were going to be coming. I just put this on to cook, let it simmer on the back burner for the whole afternoon, really. And then when they were ready to come, all I had to do was cook the pasta and dinner was on the table. So we're going to let this simmer down for just a little bit. I'm going to give it maybe half an hour, and then we'll come back and you'll see what kind of shape it's in. Yeah. All right, so we've simmered this for about half an hour. Things are starting to blend together. You can still see the individual vegetables. The longer you simmer it, the more blended together it will become. You may have to add a little bit of water to it if it's getting too thick. And make sure that you are either leaving it on a very, very low heat or you're stirring it regularly because you don't want it sticking to the bottom of the pot. Now, if you really wanted to hide those vegetables, you could take a stick blender and puree it a little bit. Personally, I kind of like it like this. Now, one of the things while we were off camera is I did have a little taste. And if it was just kids I was serving, that would be fine, but I'm going to add a little bit more pepper and just a little bit more salt because it was a little bit bland to my taste. So now what we're going to do is we're going to turn this down considerably just to keep it warm while we make the spaghetti. So while we were off, I had the water boiling. I got just some basic plain pasta. If you happen to be near a place where you can get specialty pasta that's flavored, that's great. Now there's just sort of doing about that much for one serving is about right. And if you have one of those pasta spoons, I'll call them, with the edges, and they have a little hole in the middle. And that hole in the middle is exactly one serving of pasta. So I'm going to do 2 here. I got my water boiling. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to take just a little bit of olive oil and put it in the water. And the reason we do that is it keeps it from boiling over, because sometimes with pasta you'll get that foam on the top. So we're going to just pop that in, switch it around, and then right away put it down in to make sure that everything is covered with the water. Anything that's sticking out is going to be hard. And then we're going to watch this for 9 minutes. I'm going to read the directions to make sure it is 9 minutes and not 7, because some is 7. And it says 10 minutes. Okay, so it's saying, I'm going to say 9 minutes. Then we're going to come back and we'll just test to make sure that it's ready. Okay, so we've got about a minute and a half before that pasta is ready. And I just want to show you a little something. Those of you that are old enough to remember the original Odd Couple movie might remember that there was a scene where Felix was making linguine, and to test if it was done, he took a piece and he threw it up against the wall. So let's just see if that's going to work here. See, now it didn't stick. So we know that we're just off of the 10, I'd put the timer on for 9 minutes versus 10 minutes. So just to show that that's how much of a difference. It almost stuck, but not quite. So when we hit that magic moment, just even 15 or 20 seconds can make a difference in how well that's going to cook. Okay. So there we go. Well, And be careful with this, it's incredibly hot. This is boiling water that we've had sticking there. See there, now that one's stuck. So this one is done. I'm gonna throw it back in the boiling water so we're good. And got my strainer here in the sink. Whew, steamy goodness. Just like I'm wearing a face mask and you can't see through it. One thing about this kitchen does have quartz countertops, and that's probably the nicest thing about them if I'm not worried about putting hot things on them. So there we go. So that was enough that I had for 2 servings. There we go. And some of this delicious sauce that is going to be so good for everybody. So there we have it. Hilltop Stovetop's famous spaghetti sauce. So if you'd like to find out more about cooking, don't forget to like and subscribe to Hilltop Stovetop. And if there's anything that you would like me to demonstrate, be sure that you put something in the comments and I'll see what I can do. So until next episode, bye-bye for now.